Oddballs and outliers, the strangest U.S. presidential bids in history. The presidential elections in the United States have occasionally featured candidates who defy the conventional mold, bringing a mix of controversy, eccentricity, and outright scandal to the campaign trail. From pioneers and provocateurs to jesters and outliers, these figures have challenged the norms of political discourse and left a memorable mark on American political history. This video revisits 11 of the most unusual and scandalous presidential candidates, providing a glimpse into their extraordinary campaigns filled with unique ideologies and remarkable stories. Number 1. Victoria Woodhull, 1872, breaking barriers as the first female candidate. Victoria Claflin Woodhull, born in 1838 in Homer, Ohio, broke historic ground as the first female presidential candidate in the U.S. in 1872, representing the Equal Rights Party. Advocating for controversial issues like women's suffrage, free love, and prostitution legalization, Woodhull was a pioneer in challenging societal norms. Her campaign also pushed for labor reforms, including an 8-hour workday. The climax of her campaign was her arrest on November 2, 1872, for obscenity, after her newspaper accused preacher Henry Ward Beecher of adultery. This arrest prevented her from voting in the election and underscored the societal resistance to her revolutionary ideas. Number 2. Emperor Norton, the self-proclaimed Emperor of the United States. Joshua Abraham Norton, an English businessman who experienced financial disaster in San Francisco, declared himself Emperor of the United States in September 1859. While not a formal presidential candidate, Norton became a beloved local eccentric, issuing his own currency and enacting decrees, such as his 1869 call for a League of Nations. He also advocated for infrastructure improvements like the bridge or tunnel connecting San Francisco to Oakland, visions realized long after his death in 1880. Norton's quirky presence and decrees offer a unique critique of American capitalism and politics. Number 3. John McAfee, 2016, from tech innovator to political wildcard. John McAfee, who founded the antivirus software company McAfee Associates in 1987, ventured into the 2016 presidential race under the Libertarian Party after a tumultuous period including a 2012 legal investigation in Belize related to a murder case. McAfee's campaign emphasized cybersecurity and government surveillance, areas where he had deep expertise. Despite his tech credentials, McAfee's candidacy was overshadowed by his erratic behavior and past controversies, including alleged drug use. His run brought significant attention to issues of government overreach and the importance of privacy in the digital age. Number 4. Vermin Supreme, 2004 to 2020, the tyrant you should trust. Vermin Supreme, an American political satirist, has been a recurring presidential candidate since 2004, using his campaigns as a platform to critique the political system with humor and absurdity. He is instantly recognizable by his signature boot worn as a hat in his platform that includes mandatory toothbrushing laws and free ponies for all Americans, a direct poke at the often unrealistic promises made by politicians. Notably, in the 2012 New Hampshire primary, he received 833 votes, underscoring his ability to draw attention and generate discussion around political satire. Supreme also humorously proposes using genetic engineering to create flying monkeys, adding an element of science fiction to his critique of American politics. Number 5. James Traficant, 1988, the convict candidate. James Traficant, a U.S. congressman from Ohio, ran for president in 1988 while serving a prison sentence for bribery, racketeering, and tax evasion. Convicted in 1983, his candidacy from behind bars was a historic and scandalous moment in American politics. Traficant's campaign was marked by his unapologetic and abrasive style, often using his trial and conviction to highlight what he claimed were systemic injustices and corruption in the federal government. His infamous catchphrase on the House floor, "Beam me up," was indicative of his disdain for what he perceived as the absurdity of federal policies and congressional debates. Number 6. George Wallace, 1968, the segregationist stand. George Wallace, the governor of Alabama, ran a controversial campaign for the presidency in 1968 under the banner of the American Independent Party. His platform, deeply rooted in pro-segregation policies and vehement anti-civil rights rhetoric, resonated strongly in the southern United States. Wallace's campaign was particularly inflammatory, and he often used racially charged language to galvanize his supporters, leading to heightened racial tensions during a period of significant civil unrest. His success in securing 46 electoral votes not only demonstrated the substantial support for his segregationist policies but also marked one of the most significant third-party performances in modern American history. Wallace's campaign was a direct challenge to the progress of the civil rights movement, making it one of the most divisive and scandalous presidential bids in the history of the United States. Number 7. Lyndon LaRouche, 1976 to 2004. The perennial candidate of conspiracies. Lyndon LaRouche, an American political activist known for his complex conspiracy theories, ran for U.S. president in every election from 1976 through 2004, under various party banners, including his own U.S. Labor Party. LaRouche's theories often centered around global finance and elite political circles, proposing that these groups conspired to control the world economy. He advocated for economic protectionism, a return to a gold-backed currency, and strong measures against countries he viewed as hostile to U.S. interests. In 1988, LaRouche was convicted of mail fraud and conspiracy to defraud the IRS, which he claimed was politically motivated to silence his dissent. Despite this, he continued his presidential bids, focusing on platforms that called for the development of advanced technologies like nuclear fusion and the colonization of Mars. Number 8. Aaron Burr, 1800, the dueling vice president. Aaron Burr, serving as vice president under Thomas Jefferson, ran for president in the contentious election of 1800. Burr and Jefferson each received 73 electoral votes, throwing the decision to the House of Representatives, as dictated by the Constitution at that time. The deadlock was broken after 36 ballots, with Jefferson emerging as the winner, largely due to the influence of Alexander Hamilton, despite their mutual enmity. Burr's political career was further marred by his duel with Hamilton in 1804, where Hamilton was fatally wounded. Burr's later years were shadowed by accusations of treason for allegedly attempting to establish an independent empire in the center of North America, culminating in a trial presided over by Chief Justice John Marshall, where Burr was acquitted but left politically isolated. Number 9. Horace Greeley, 1872, the newspaperman's bid for the presidency. Horace Greeley, the influential founder of the New York Tribune, ran for president in 1872 as the candidate of the Liberal Republican Party, and was later endorsed by the Democratic Party. Greeley campaigned on a platform of civil service reform, reconciliation between the North and South following the Civil War, and protections for civil rights. His eccentricities, such as his unconventional dress and outspoken nature, along with a campaign marred by personal tragedies and public gaffes, ultimately led to a significant electoral defeat. Greeley won only 66 electoral votes to Ulysses S. Grant's 286. Overwhelmed by the death of his wife and the stress of the campaign, Greeley died on November 29, 1872, before the Electoral College votes were even counted. Number 10. Eugene V. Debs, 1900, 1904, 1908, 1912, 1920, the persistent socialist. Eugene V. Debs, the leader of the Socialist Party of America, ran for the U.S. presidency 5 times. His last campaign in 1920 was conducted from prison, where he was serving a 10-year sentence for his speech in Canton, Ohio, opposing World War I, which the government deemed in violation of the Espionage Act. Despite his incarceration, Debs received over 900,000 votes, about 3.4% of the popular vote, reflecting significant public support for his platform advocating for labor rights, social welfare, and anti-war policies. His campaigns are remembered for their impassioned advocacy for the working class and his criticism of capitalist systems. Number 11. Pogo the Possum, the comic strip candidate. Pogo the Possum, a character from Walt Kelly's beloved comic strip, was symbolically nominated for president by his fans during the 1952 and 1956 elections. Pogo's campaign was a satirical critique of the political landscape of the time, using the slogan "I Go Pogo" to parody the empty promises and rhetoric often found in political campaigns. The comic strip effectively used humor and satire to reflect on the absurdity and complexity of American politics, providing a playful yet insightful commentary on the state of the nation through the eyes of the lovable characters of the Okefenokee Swamp.